Hey everyone, I want to do something kind of special today because I think the last time I made a video like this with this specific topic was a few years ago, and obviously since then I've gotten some new subscribers and stuff, so I figured it's a good time to kind of revisit it. So for those of you who don't know, for me every year on July 16th, it's kind of a personal thing, but it's a day where I celebrate both John Carpenter and George Romero. Not that I don't on other days throughout the year as well for different reasons, but specifically this day, it's a little bit more personal. So as far as John Carpenter goes, July 16th is many years ago. Getting specifics in just a moment, but it's when I, for the first time, finally met him. And it was at his concert when he did the first music tour. And sadly, July 16th is also the day that George Romero passed, which hit me pretty hard. So for those of you who don't know, both John Carpenter and George Romero are huge idols of mine in so many different ways. When I was, I think I mentioned this before. Well, I know I have, but just in case you haven't heard. So John Carpenter's The Fog and George Romero's Creepshow are two... there were other films, but those two specifically were massively huge in really, I think, confirming me as being a horror film fan. When I was I was in single digits, when I saw both of those. Yeah, so I've always had so even from a young age, like I always had, the two of them always meant something very special to me. So even though July 16th has it's a little bit at both ends of the emotional spectrum, in a way, as far as obviously being extremely excited about seeing John Carpenter in concert and finally meeting him, but also the passing of George Romero, which again hit me very hard when that happened. And so obviously very sad, but in both cases, I've taken it as a day to celebrate both of them. So as far as John Carpenter goes, so back in July 16th, 2016 was when, he was doing his first music tour at the time. And so before that, I'd missed out on 2 occasions to meet him at different conventions, and I was super bummed. So when the tour came about and when he announced the Chicago show, as soon as those went on sale, I bought tickets and I went out of my way to get the meet and greet. And I was counting down the days until that event. The funny thing is, on the day, because I'd never been to this venue before, and I wasn't sure what to expect. So when on the day, I got there actually really early, a few hours ahead of time. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. So they hadn't even set up all the barriers yet or anything. So I literally just walked inside the building. Now they did have part of it already closed off, which led to the main stage area. But outside of that, I walked right in. I was just right there, and I could hear them practicing at the time. And I mean, how's this for just being perfect for me, especially? They were practicing the Escape from New York theme. So as soon as I walk in the building, that's the first thing I hear. And it was So anyway, so I hung out for a little bit inside. And then when they finally set up the barriers, I was able to go out. And I was obviously the first one there. I was the first one in line. And they were recording, that's when they were doing all the recording that they did on the tour. So they were interviewing people at a lot of the different cities. But the main 2 cities that they were recording the actual performance for was Chicago, and then I believe one of the ones in the UK. And then for the video that came out of it, I think what they did is they basically just edited those 2 concerts together to show the full performance. So as I was in line, the camera crew, was there, and they wanted to interview a couple people. And because I was the first one there, they asked me if I wanted to be interviewed, and I was like, oh yeah, and stuff, which was cool. And then, so they interviewed me. And then once we got inside, again, the meet and greet happened first. Once again, I'm the first one in line. So I'm the first one to meet him when he walks in the room. And I did get, you can only get 2 things signed. So I wanted to be very particular about what I got signed, which obviously, Escape from New York poster, I obviously had to get signed. Even though I do have a couple, I decided to lean towards the folded one that I have. The rolled one, because it is kind of rare, is obviously framed right behind me right there. And I also wanted to get The Fog, because as I mentioned, The Fog was a very big film for me. And I was able to get a picture with him and everything. And the camera crew was even filming, again, obviously a lot of stuff going on in the meet and greet, including getting me a couple more times. And then obviously watched the show, and it was just, I mean, it blew me away. It's when you grow up watching his movies, but also listening constantly to all the music that he's composed for all of his films, which, I know by heart. And then to actually see and hear them performed right in front of me, it was, I mean, I can't even describe how much it blew me away. I mean, that literally, from on a very personal note, I mean, I could easily say that was definitely one of my favorite evenings that I've ever had. And the cool thing is, a couple of years later, when they finally released the concert video, obviously, the day it arrived, I'm like, oh, I'm putting it in, and what's the first thing I hear? Yes, it's me. It's my annoying voice, and I'm literally the very first person that shows up in the video, and it was just like, blew me away. Absolutely blew me away. So yeah, so if you had the documentary and you put it in, I'm the first one on there. So, which is cool for me, but apologize for a couple of you, because it's like, oh yeah, more of me. So that night and that day even is just will always mean something very, very special to me. And then for George Romero, obviously it's a little bit of a sadder occasion, because exactly 1 year after that, in 2017, on July 16th, is when George Romero passed away, which again hit me hard, because again, one of my idols. I grew up, I was on all his films, all the interviews he's ever did, and I was lucky enough to meet him actually quite a few times over the years. I mean, I don't know, it hit. It definitely hit. What I've done, it's kind of ironic that the two events happen obviously a year apart, but literally a year apart on the same day. So George Romero, for those of you who don't know, I'm sure most of you do, but George Romero, out of all the Dead films that he made, Day of the Dead was actually his personal favorite. And I think part of that had to do, if I had to give my opinion on it, is, so obviously Day of the Dead originally was supposed to be a much more bigger film with a bigger budget. But the distributor wanted it to be released rated R because of the money that they were putting into it, and Romero was just like, well, I don't want to limit my film. I mean, whether it's rated R or unrated, I don't want to limit it. So they said, well, I can't give you that much money. I can give you, I forget the exact number, but I want to say about half that amount, which means he couldn't make the initial script that he wrote. So he went off and completely rewrote this. Obviously kept the main element of it, but rewrote the script to fit within that budget restraint. I think for him, and because I've been in this situation before and I understand it, so you don't want to be under massive amounts of pressure when you're trying to create something, but on occasion, some pressure it can actually lead to a lot of creativity. And I think in that case where he was under pressure to rewrite it, and I think rewrite it in kind of quick, and also to make sure he keeps everything within that lower budget range, I think really made him think a lot more creatively, so that he could still accomplish the vision that he wanted and still come in, within that budget range. And that can actually, as a filmmaker, that can actually be quite rewarding, when if you can accomplish those things. And also, I think because Day of the Dead was not some massive success, I have a feeling over the years afterwards, he wasn't really asked that much about Day of the Dead. It was on occasion, but I think for the most part, people want to talk to him, they would talk to him about, mainly Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead. So not so much about Day of the Dead, at least for a while. And I think because of the conditions that he had to make the film, and again, in my opinion, that sort of creative constraint, which led to actually some good creativity, as well as not overly talking about it for several years, I think it's probably why, in my opinion, why it might have ended up being his favorite. And of course, some of the ideas that he had for the original script for Day of the Dead, did aspects of it did actually work their way into Land of the Dead, so it's not like those ideas were lost. So while I do take a moment every year on this day to obviously, be a little sad that obviously he's no longer with us, but also thankful for obviously, almost an entire lifetime of all the inspiration that he's given me. I was thankful for all the times I got to meet him, and I also, again, I take this day to also honor him and his memory and stuff. So I make a point of watching Day of the Dead on this day every single year. Yeah, it's a yearly tradition for me for July 16th. So I just wanted to make this video again because I think some of you may not have heard this before. But yeah, so every year on July 16th, I happily get to celebrate two of my idols. Granted, for different reasons, but at the end of the day, I'm celebrating them both. And again, I'm so thankful for everything that the two of them have done for me personally over the years. And in a weird way, even though with George Romero, obviously it's a sad thing, but I like having this day be something so specific and personal to me for the two of them. So I want to share this with you guys. And yeah, I don't know if you want to share anything with about either of them or anything, or if you saw John Carpenter on tour or something, or the first film you saw from him, or the same thing with George Romero, if you ever got to meet him, your favorite George Romero film, or whatever you want to share about either one of them or both, I'd be happy to read it. And yeah, so thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one.